Alright, so let's go ahead and do a little bit of refactoring, and then we'll also take a look at the ranking in the aggregated dividend section. So let's jump to our editor, and we'll go ahead and go to our aggregated dividend. And I want to change some things about this calculate aggregated dividends function because I'm not too happy with how it turned out. And we're doing a lot of things, and we're returning an array and multiple values, and I want to clean it up a little bit. So I'm going to create a function called getValidKeys, and I'm going to turn, and I'm going to copy this over here, and I'm going to return the keys within threshold boundaries, and then remove that. And in fact, we'll remove this entire function, and we'll go to our getAverage function, and we'll say const valid keys equals getValidKeys, and make sure we pass in the dividends, and we'll say validKeys equals getValidKeys in the getTotalDividends as well. And then instead of calling on this function, which we don't have anymore, we'll call on the calculateTotalDividends function, and we'll pass in the valid keys, and now we'll remove our array, and we'll make sure to use the valid keys down here in this calculation as well. And in getTotalDividends, what we'll do is we'll just change out the calculate aggregated dividends function with the calculate total dividends, and we'll pass in the valid keys, and then that should still work as we expect. Okay, so let's take a look at the ranking. And what we want to do is we want to sort the stocks array according to the aggregate dividends relative to the year. So the year that we have in our state, which is controlled by our select. And then once we have that stocks list sorted, we want to search the list for the currently selected stock. So remember, we're in this view, so that's the view that represents a singular stock. So we want to use that information and find that same stock in the sorted list, and then we want to take the index of the found stock and add 1 to it. Because the list is 0 based, we want to add 1, and then we'll get the ranking. So finally we'll return out the ranking. So let's get started on that by going to our stock view and make sure we pass down the stocks to our dividend component, which is the layer before the aggregated dividend component. So we'll pass the stocks down to the dividend component, and then we'll switch to that component and make sure we destructure that here, and we'll pass that along to the aggregated dividend. So it's going through 2 layers or 3 layers now, which is almost painful, but we'll keep it as it is for now. And then in our aggregated dividend function, we are going to, in this component, we are going to accept the stocks by destructuring it from the props object. And we're gonna pass it in as an argument to our getAggregateRanking function. So I'm just calling it down here and passing the stocks as an argument. So if we log out the stocks here now, we should have our stocks list. And we do. Perfect. So now we can get started sorting it. And if you remember, in our helpers file, we have a sort stocks function, and we've created all of these helper functions for sorting. So we'll do the same here for sorting stocks by aggregated dividend. And we have a slight problem or challenge here, and that's since we are using a piece of state to calculate the total dividends, we need to make sure that we have that available to the functions that's going to do the calculation in this sorting. So if we go to our helpers function file, in the sort stocks function, we are passing a sorting value function, and the sorting value function is responsible for taking a stock and then doing some calculation on it, and then using that as the basis for sorting. But since the sorting value function in this instant is dependent on a piece of state that lives inside the aggregated dividend component, we need to think a little bit differently. So there's a couple of ways we could do this. We could create a function here that gives us the keys that we need based on some sort of value that we pass in. But for now, I think I'm going to pass a callback into this sort stocks function. So we'll go ahead and do the same thing here as we did before. So we'll go stocks, and we'll give it the callback. And then we'll go ahead and we'll import this into our aggregated dividend component. So let's go ahead and use this now. And we'll say const sorted equals sort stocks by aggregated dividend, and we'll pass in the stocks. And we also need the callback here. So we could use this one, but it currently accepts the dividends, and what's passed into the sort stock into the callback here is the actual stock. So we need to create another function for now, and we will call that const get total dividend per stock. And inside of here, we'll accept the stock, and we'll say const valid keys equals get valid keys, and then stock.dividends. And then we'll say const total equals calculate total dividends, and we'll give it the valid keys and the stock.dividends. And then we'll return the total. And then we'll pass this in to the sort stocks by aggregate dividend function. And now that we have the sorted array here, we are going to search the list for the currently selected stock. And the way to do that is to take the ticker and match it with the ticker in the sorted list. So we need to go to our dividend function, and we'll pass down the ticker from the currently selected stock. And then inside of this function, we'll go ahead and say we'll create a variable called ranking, and we'll say sorted for each stock item, and then index. We'll do if stock item equals ticker, and we'll accept the ticker here. Then we'll say ranking equals index plus 1, and then we'll return the ranking down here. Now we also need to make sure we accept the ticker up here, so we have it available, and we need to make sure we also pass it in to this function. Alright, so let's go ahead and make this a variable called ranking, and we'll pass in the ranking here and here, and hit save. And now let's go ahead and see what's going on. We don't seem to be getting any rankings, so let's go ahead and make sure we actually match on the ticker. And now we are able to get the ranking calculated for us. So that's interesting. Let's go and see the other ones. Alright, so now we're getting these stocks here ranked on their dividend per share in aggregate. So it's based on this select box here. So if we change it, now the actual data isn't that different. So we won't see any big differences now, but when we plug in an API, then we should be able to see some interesting results based on this. Alright, so now we got it working. We might do some refactoring changes to this later, but the first step is always to get something working and then figure out how we can make it better. So I think we'll leave it there for now. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next video.